Most owners in allied health private practice think they're running a business, when in reality, what they're running is a very stressful and often low paying job that is worth nothing if they ever decide to sell the practice. It doesn't have to be this way. In this video, I'll show you the three types of private practice ownership and how not knowing this can lead you to a lifetime of low revenue and long hours. I'll also share the foundational principles of real health business ownership that can add thousands of dollars to the eventual sale price of your practice should you sell it. Check it out. All right. One of the best places to start when you're thinking about what situation you're in is understanding the different situations or preferred situations you've got in your practice life at the moment. Because essentially, there's only really three types of ownership. The first one is what we call a type A, which is called a job. It's the job business. And unkindly referred to as the acronym JOB, just over broke. This is where you are the business. If you stop working, the revenue stops. Let me show you a picture of me in my first job-based practice. So here I am, early days. My first job that I thought was a business, I used to go in and take over the gym manager's office every afternoon in the gym that I was working at as a personal trainer instructor. So I'd take over his office at 3 o'clock every afternoon. I was a physio and I'd start then treating patients. I'd put my portable treatment bed out. And then I'd see patients between 3 and 8 o'clock every night. And I thought I had a business, but reality, I had a job. If I wasn't there, no money was being made. I think I was charging $35 per half-hour consultation back in those days. I didn't even have a lease. And yet I thought, well, I've got my first business or practice, whatever I call it. But reality, I had a job. And I think that's what a lot of people have, and they don't think they've got that. They've got a job. Now, this is also the same. You can think about the incredibly skilled neurosurgeon who's seeing patients, but if they're not seeing patients, they're not making money either. They can be incredibly skilled, but they can be chained to their own practice. This may also be the situation for, in your case, you may be a solo practice owner or a solo therapist in a regional town. Now, there might be a lot of people needing your services, but it's hard to get available labor out there, so you're chained to the business. So there's lots of market for what you do, but there's no available labor. So you're chained to it. But equally, this might also be the situation where there are health professionals who've had a team, who've had a larger practice, but then sell it, move on, and decide to just downsize and do it themselves because they don't want the stress of a team. They don't want to manage people again. And that's all. This is all fine. Just to understand, my point today, I think, is to make sure you understand the model that you've got and understand the limitations of that model. This job-based situation, it's a current bank business, which means you're making money, and you may make good money while you're doing it, which is great, but just don't expect a big exit price because it's not worth much to a buyer. A buyer of this job may buy your database and maybe the equipment, but it's not really worth much because you're doing all of it. As I said, this is okay as long as you know the limitations. We've got clients in our Practiceology VIP program who run this exact model. We call it a Mr. or Miss X model. In this model, they charge high fees. They don't have a team. They might have an admin person that comes in, but they charge high fees. They choose their hours. They take school holidays off. There's one guy, if the surf's up, he'll just close the clinic and he'd put a sign on the door saying, "Surf's up, sorry, I'll reschedule you." Now, you might sit there and think, well, that's a crappy way to run a business, but they're doing it on their terms. So again, not a problem as long as you understand what you're running. But invest the money now. If you're in that kind of situation now, invest the money, do well out of it because there's no big payout coming for you when you come to exit it. Now, what's the opportunity? There's an opportunity in this sort of model. It's often how we start out. I started out doing that. So you start out that way, and it's a launching pad for you. You see if you like doing it, if you want to do this for the rest of your life or for a number of years, do you want it? And you see, is there enough market for it? Then you can gradually expand if you want to. Opportunity, it can be a low stress model because there's no staff. And it's a model I probably moved to after I sold my practice. It's a maximum profit with the minimum number of team members model. You can take time off when you like, as long as you do. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of people get sucked into this model and they end up working long hours and they think the patients are in charge. But this can run well if you run it on your terms. And it's almost controversially, it's the patients come last model. Run the business on your terms, take lots of holidays, charge high fees, don't treat people you don't want to treat. But the other opportunity here is you can use this model to work on the exit in terms of it might be an exit where you package and sell your intellectual property. We've got clients in our program that are working on packages and programs they're selling to other health professionals, but they're using this as the testing ground for how to do it. So it's a model that can work, licensing, selling your intellectual property, packaging your systems, and that can work quite effectively as well. Let's have a look at the second type. Now, this is when you move into a practice. This is me a little bit further down the track. Now, I'd moved into a practice, or what I called a practice at that stage. So I'd gone from the job where it was just me. I then took on bigger space. I had multiple cubicles. I started to get some team on board. So in my world, I then went from being a job owner to having a practice, which essentially is what it was. I had some systems. I had some team. I knew that, and I gradually, as I built that, and I started reducing my work hours, but it was still heavily dependent on me. It was worth something to a buyer, possibly at that stage, but it was heavily discounted because of the owner dependence, how much it had to do with me. And you might have, I spoke to an owner last week who there was some corporate interest in her practice, but they didn't want to buy in unless the owner agreed to stay for 5 years or something, and the team had to sign long-term contracts. So this can work. It's how we expand. It's a practice, yes, but it's still not worth as much as you'd like it to be in a buyer's eyes unless you can remove yourself from it. But you can build on this and gradually increase the team members, reduce reliance on you, and go to the next stage. So it has an opportunity in that level. Here's the third type of practice, or the third type of situation, if you like. Now, here's a photo of my team as I was growing, and I was moving into the business. I went from job to practice, and I started having a business. And I gradually grew a team. This is early days. We were growing bigger and bigger. And interestingly enough, a couple of people in this photo went on to buy my practices or parts of my practices. So what we're getting here at this stage, we've got now the business running, or the business is running without me or without you as the owner. So you've gone from being totally dependent on you to then being a situation where you've got some systems and some teams, so it becomes a practice, but then you evolve to the point where you aren't there much at all and you've got a business. My business, I had 6 locations. I didn't go to them hardly ever. At one point, I wasn't even allowed into the gym where one of my clinics was because they didn't know who I was. So I was very absent as an owner. So I was a business owner, and that had value in the eyes of the people that bought it. So the business runs without me or without you. Now, this is the only real structure that commands a premium price when you come to exit it. Now, my clinic sold to these guys and to other people because I wasn't there. So they knew, and the element of certainty was the fact that it would keep going the way it was if they took it over, because it wasn't going to change. And I sold the lifestyle, not the business. The buyers wanted what I had. I also sold speed. Now, what I meant, I sold the speed. They could have done it themselves, would have had to find the lease. They would have had to build the database, and they could have got there, but it would have been slow. So they bought speed. And because I had an inside running with some of the gyms we were in, I had access to the leases. They would have had trouble getting those leases. So again, there's a value in that to a buyer. So you're selling speed and you're selling the lifestyle if you are doing that. So think about in your world, which are you? Are you a job, a type A? Are you a practice? Are you a B? Or are you a business, which is a C? And that can help you. And I wish I'd known that when I started. I kind of evolved into it, and it gradually increases the exit price and the value of your business when you sell it. Now, that being said, there are foundational principles of what we call the practice exit formula. We're doing whole programs now on the practice exit formula. And there's a couple of foundational principles I wish I knew when I started my journey 30 years ago. The first foundational principle is asking the question, it's the is what I'm about to do question. Now, this is a question you ask yourself with every decision you make inside the practice. So the question is essentially, is what I'm about to do going to increase or decrease the eventual sale price of my practice? So is what I'm about to do going to increase or decrease the eventual sale price of my practice? Now, you as a practice owner or business owner or job owner, whichever you've got, you make decisions every day. So my foundational principle for you is when you make these decisions, go back to this question regarding that decision. So let's say you decide I'm going to drop my consulting hours from 5 days to 4 days. What's that going to do to the eventual sale price of my practice? I can tell you with first-hand experience, it's going to increase the value in a buyer's eyes because you're not there as much. So making that decision, investing technology, getting a new software system, putting email in and then staying in touch with my database. Will it increase or decrease the sale price of my business? Moving to a larger premises, getting AI admin set up, starting a new team member mentor program to encourage retention of team members. So all those things, think about every decision you make. Is it going to increase or decrease the eventual sale price of my practice? And you'll then make better decisions as a result of it. You're also then setting yourself up. When you do decide to sell, you've at least got something to sell that might be worth something to someone else. Foundational principle number 2 that I talk about with our VIPs in our group, understand the index of uncertainty. Now, the index of uncertainty. Every buyer is pricing your practice based on uncertainty, not just profit. So how certain are they that if they buy your business or practice or job, is it going to keep going with exactly the same results or better than what you showed? If you reduce the uncertainty in the buyer's eyes, you increase the sale price. That's the entire formula in one sentence. So I encourage you watching this, think about what are your risks now, because here's a line I love. The risks to a buyer of your practice or business are your risks now. The risks to a buyer are your risks now. Think about it. Have you got a lease coming up for renewal? And that they may not renew it. That's a risk for you, and it's also a risk for the buyer. Is there a large clinic opening up the road? Is your senior therapist, who's been a major biller for you for a long time, getting closer to retiring or moving out of town? Are the government organisations or insurance companies cutting funding? Their risks. Are you at risk if your key admin person gets sick? What about if you get sick? There's risks here. So think about, or even if Google and you get 80% of your new patients from your successful Google Ads program, and Google decides to change the algorithm. So again, these are risks to you now, but they're exactly the same risks to the buyer. So my suggestion to you is start thinking about reducing your risks, which will then reduce the risk to the buyer and increase your eventual sale price. Foundational principle number 3, I love this one. The principle of the opportunity cost. What do I talk about? Maybe the best example, when I sold Get Active Physio, I had 6 clinics and I sold them. And my beautiful fellow said, why are we selling them? They make good money. You're never there. Why would you do it? And a lot of people said the same thing to me. And I said this, and I think about it, there's still an opportunity cost for staying. So I still had to manage the thing. I still had some things to do. And I had opportunities to do more of what I'm doing now, more business mentoring with larger groups of people. So I had opportunities to do bigger things. Staying as a practice owner would have limited these opportunities for me. So there was an opportunity cost for me to stay where I was. So owners will say all the time, so I've put 20 years in this business. I can't just walk away from it. Well, I would challenge, yes, you can, because what's it costing you to stay? What are you missing out on? What opportunity would you be doing if you didn't have this business? So if you understand you've got a job-based business and you just shut it. We've had multiple situations in our group, even recently, where some of our members have had businesses, other health businesses up the road from them, come in and almost drop their database in their lap and say, I'm closing the business, take it over for me. And you'll say that's terrible. But if the person knew they were running a current bank business, a job-based business, and they just knew that was time to get out, they had opportunities to do something else, nothing wrong with that. Just understand the model you're running. So what are you missing out on by staying? You can certainly walk away as long as you understand. If you walk away, if you've had a current bank business, it did its time, it did its purpose, it provided what you wanted, and then you move on. That's okay. Just understand the opportunity cost if you just stay, if you stay. Foundation principle number 4 are really the decisions I think you need to make when you decide to go down this path of job to practice to business. Decisions really, do you want to be a health professional or do you want to be a business owner? Some people would say, well, I can be both. Yeah, well, you sort of can be, but the more consulting you do as a practitioner, the less time you've got for managing your team. There's a thing we call Roddy's Law. The more team members you have, the less consulting you can do and still stay sane. So do you want to be a health professional or do you want to be a health business owner? It's a decision you need to make. And the other thing, if you do decide to be a business owner, you decide to go down this path and be a business owner, there's a question you have to understand and ask yourself. Do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? Do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? Once you go down the path of practice to business and you start employing people, you're not always going to be liked. How could you possibly always be liked when you're controlling your team members' wages, uniforms, hours, holidays? Like there's too many things for you to always to be liked. Just understand that's the price you pay for being a practice owner or eventually a business owner if you do that. Just accept it and move on. Or if you don't want to handle that, stay as a Mr. or Miss X, have a job, do it well. Current bank model, there's nothing wrong with that. So think about in your world, what sort of practice have you got? Or what sort of situation have you got? Is it a job? Is it a practice? Is it a business? And what's the opportunity cost for you staying? And ask yourself some of those foundational questions. Now, I hope that was useful for you. If you'd like to learn how to build a clinic that doesn't depend on you and is worth more to a potential buyer when you do, and if you do decide to sell down the track, watch my free training. It's below here. The link's below. It's the Earn More, Work Less, the Practice Owner's Plan. There's a link under this video. Watch that. Enjoy it. See you soon.